MTA is committed to providing you the best in transit, and we're interested in your thoughts about MTA services. That's why we feature a segment called Ask the MTA. On the Ask the MTA segment, we give you an opportunity to ask MTA personnel a question you have concerning transit. And here to answer some of your questions about MARC Commuter Rail Service is its director, John Hovatter. We recently took to the streets for your questions. Let's go to our first question.
This is Rashad Hurricane the King Hawkins. I'm from Lexington Terrace, Baltimore City. And what I want to know is, why don't the MARC train work on weekends?
Well, actually we don't run on weekends because we don't have enough money to run on weekends. That's what it's...
So it's primarily a revenue issue?
Yeah, it's a revenue issue. We were going to enact weekend service back in 2008, but then the recession hit and we had to pull it back. So we hopefully one day will operate on the weekends. That's our plan, and hopefully it's soon.
Yeah, it is an expensive thing. Now on to our next question.
My name is Christian. I'm from Patapsco side of Baltimore, and my question is, like, y'all have the last train in the morning that ends around like 8 something, then y'all close until about 3 something. How come y'all don't have no trains that run in between that time?
Well, I'm assuming that question was for the Camden Line.
Right.
The Camden Line does not offer service on the midday service. The Penn Line does.
Yeah, that's much more frequent on the Penn Line.
Yes, much more frequent on the Penn Line. The Camden Line service is because we just don't have that many riders on the Camden Line. We only have about 4,000 riders.
Issue, though.
Yeah, ridership is an issue on Penn Line. We're on 21,000. Camden Line only about 4,500.
21,000 on the Penn Line?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. Now on to our next question.
Hi, my name is Titi Mukherjee. I'm from Kolkata, India, and I would like to know how MARC trains are beneficial to the Disabled Society of America.
Well, as you know, all of our trains do have disability accommodations on them. And every train has a what we call an ADA car, where you can take on your whatever apparatus you have, and secure seating on there. Most of our stations are ADA accessible.
But I know there are some improvements. There are some things that they're making to places like Halethorpe and other stations to make them much more accessible.
Yeah, Halethorpe will be a complete ADA accessible station here within 2 years.
But what we usually tell people to do is to take a look at our website, and it'll identify which stations are ADA accessible, just to help them kind of in guiding, getting around and boarding the train.
Yeah, Joe, that's correct. Either that or the website or our MARC Rider's Guide.
Sounds great. Now on to our next question.
My name is Omar Saeed. I'm from Washington, D.C. and I'd like to know if the MARC train is ever going to extend past D.C.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about extending service on to go south of Washington, D.C.
But isn't there VRE already there?
VRE is already there, and we do have many passengers that interconnect between MARC and VRE. Unfortunately, at this time, the infrastructure is not in place for us to actually go south of Washington, D.C.
They're not compatible. The train...
Well, the trains are compatible. The problem is the track structure. The stationing and the facilities are just not there to operate south of them.
It's pretty expensive to put all those things in place, am I correct?
Yes, it's very expensive. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars.
Wow. Okay, on to our next question.
My name's Chuck. I'm from Woodlawn area staying right now, and can the MTA lower the prices on the MARC train?
Lower MARC train prices. Wow, that's against the trend.
That would be an interesting proposition. Actually, we have done a study. MARC train prices are one of the lowest in the country right now. We have not raised our prices since 2003.
Wow.
At this time, there is no idea to raise the prices or anything at this point. So,
but if anything, there have been a lot of subsidies. In the last year or two, the federal government has increased the amount of subsidies. State governments, there are a lot of tax credits that people get for commuting. So if anything, I think it is lower, as you said.
Well, we do have a lot of federal workers that do get subsidies to ride the train. There are, of course, a lot of them that do not get subsidies. Right. Like I said, at this time, we're just not going to raise prices right now.
Right, or lower them at this point.
Or lower them.
And our next and last question is one received by email. It's from a Madeline Cash of Baltimore. Madeline writes, my father, who's a big train buff, says MARC Rail was once a part of the B&O commuter rail system before the state of Maryland assumed the operation in the 70s. But wasn't B&O out of the train business before the 70s? We have a small wager of crabs at stake here. Could you help us with this?
Well, the history of MARC train goes back many, many years. The B&O Railroad, of course, is centered here in Baltimore, and was started here in Baltimore. They operated the service until they became part of a system called the Chessie system.
Okay.
That's when the C&O and the B&O both merged.
Okay.
The crews basically we're still B&O crews up
Okay.
until the state started supporting the system in the mid-'70s. So if you notice some of the older conductors back in the 70s and 80s, they still had their B&O emblem
Oh, they do?
on
Wow.
their uniform and stuff like that.
But we do operate on some of the old rails, like the Camden Line.
We do. The
Okay.
Camden and the Brunswick line are both former B&O railroads.
So who wins the bet?
I think I don't want to be a determinant of the
Who
bet.
gets the crabs?
I think actually what you should do is buy the bushel of crabs and share them.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we really appreciate it. I know a lot of folks have questions about MARC trains, so what should they do?
They should visit us on our website and ask us any question they want, and we'll get back to them.
Thanks a lot. If
Thank
you
you.
have questions or you'd like to ask the MTA, visit the MTA television show link at mta.maryland.gov and drop us a line, or check us out on Facebook or Twitter. In the month of April, the state of Maryland lost a true legendary figure, William Donald Schaefer. The MTA offers our sincere thanks to all of his efforts. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Take care.